Today, life on wheels has become longer than one on the feet. An innocent, bubbling life of an 18-year-old got constricted by shoulder down paralysis caused by a surprise accident, bringing it to a standstill. Freedom and joy got replaced by shock, helplessness, anger, agony, and pain. How did I and my dear ones deal with this darkness? How did I find hope, meaning, and purpose? A wave of melancholy swept over her as she penned these words when she turned 36. A stage when wheels became her wings, taking her far and wide, bringing her respect and recognition, making her a beacon of hope to many. To unravel this real life story, listen into Ekta Bhyan, a renowned Indian para-athlete from Hisar, Haryana. Despite being rendered quadriplegic, she completed her bachelor's and master's degrees in English, a bachelor's in education, and then went on to crack the highly competitive Haryana Civil Services exams, which earned her a job as a state government employment officer. Competing in the F51 parasports classification, she has excelled nationally and globally, clinching a historic gold medal at the 2018 Asian Para Games and representing India at the Tokyo 2020 Paralympics. Beyond sports, Ekta actively advocates for rights of persons with disabilities. Welcome, Ekta, to Wings Podcast.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Uh, Ekta, it's such a pleasure, such a joy, and I will say a privilege for somebody like me, and even for our listeners on Wings Podcast, to get an opportunity to listen to you. And for me personally, to have a unique opportunity to be in conversation with you. So thank you very much for coming on the podcast.
Thanks to you, sir, for giving me this opportunity where I can share my story. And I hope I can create some awareness about my community of disabled persons.
Well, honestly, I do not have a set script. Neither do I have any set questions or prompts for this conversation. The only thing I have is a brief paragraph about you, which I kind of asked Google Gemini to give me a brief summary about Ekta Bhyan in about 100 odd words. So, if it is okay with you, can I read that out as it is?
Yes, sir, sure.
Google Gemini said, Ekta Bhyan is a premier Indian para-athlete from Hisar, Haryana. At age 18, a tragic road accident left her paralyzed with quadriplegia. Refusing to let her physical limitations define her, she completed her bachelor's and master's degree in English and followed by a bachelor's in education. She then went on to crack the highly competitive Haryana Civil Services examination and currently serves her state as a government employment officer. She later took up para athletics under the guidance of her mentor, Shri Amit Kumar Saroha. Competing in the F51 classification, she excelled globally, clinching a historic gold medal at the 2018 Asian Para Games and representing India at the Tokyo 2020 Paralympics. Beyond sports, Ekta actively advocates for rights of persons with disabilities. Ekta goes on to say something like this. Physical disability is not a barrier to attaining your dreams. Yes, we look different, but I believe our mental strength can create miracles. Unquote. Ekta, I always find descriptions like these to be that part of the iceberg which is visible above the water. And there is enough data and evidence to say that 90% of the iceberg is something which we can't see, which is below the surface of the water. So I'm sure this brief description that Google Gemini gave me about you does give all of us a glimpse of who you are and what you have done. But I'm sure there's so much more to Ekta than what is being said here. So I honestly do not know how to progress this conversation further than this. I need your help.
First of all, Google has shared a very deep and very thoughtful introduction in very few words. So I can start with a poem of mine.
Oh, yes. I know you are not only a master's in English language, but you are an amazing poetess, both in Hindi and English. But yeah, we could start this conversation by us listening to one of your poems, either in Hindi or English. I leave it to you.
Before the poem, I would like to introduce myself for the listeners, especially who don't have knowledge about my disability. I'm a wheelchair user. As Milind sir already said that I'm having quadriplegia. Quadriplegia means the disability of all four limbs. I had an injury in the spinal cord at cervical level. Because of that, I have paralysis, shoulder down paralysis. So there is partial paralysis in my upper hands, in my upper limbs, and complete paralysis of my lower limbs. So since then, I'm a wheelchair user, and I was 18 when I met this with this accident, and when I completed my 18 years on wheelchair, at that point of time, I wrote this poem. So this is something very close to my heart, and it is for the first time that I'm sharing it in an interview. So this will surely sums up my life and the whole interview. I'm very sure about it. So the title of the poem is 18 saal, means the 18 years. 18 years before injury and 18 years after injury. आज पहियों की जिंदगी पैरों से लंबी हो गई है. अब भी स्तब्ध हो जाती हूँ, कैसे छोटी सी बच्ची सब इतना सह गई. बारिश का वो दिन था, मन सुबह से कुछ ना कुछ सा था. फिर लगा गाड़ी में बैठे बैठे एक धक्का और जैसे पूरा ब्रह्मांड हिल गया. एक थी जिंदगी नाचती दौड़ती, अचानक आकर थी रुक गई. पूरा परिवार था दर्द में, कोई सह रहा था, कोई संभाल रहा था. कुछ नहीं रहा था पहले जैसा, ना देखा था ना सुना था वैसा. जानती मैं नहीं थी कि कैसे आगे बढ़ पाऊंगी. शुरू में कुछ समय थी उम्मीद कि सब होगा पहले सा ठीक, पर गंभीर थी चोट रीढ़ की हड्डी की, जिसका ना इलाज था ना कोई बूटी. फिर सफर शुरू हुआ पहियों का, जीवन लग रहा था चुनौती सा. धीरे धीरे कुछ हिम्मत की, कुछ हौसलों ने भरी उड़ान, और करने लगी नई जिंदगी का निर्माण. समय तो लगता है, पर सब ठीक हो जाता है. पंख बन गए हैं ये पहिए अब, और पूरे कर रही हूं लक्ष्य सब. धन्यवाद. थैंक यू.
ब्यूटिफुल, ब्यूटिफुल एकता, आपने तो निशब्द कर दिया. I mean, I don't know how to respond. I'm just kind of soaking in what you have just said. Maybe you could help us understand what is it this poem is all about.
The poem is about the sudden life-altering accident I had at a very young age. Before my injury, neither my family nor I have ever seen someone on a wheelchair. We haven't seen wheelchair before, and seeing your child, 18-year-old child on a wheelchair is so difficult for the family and for me as well, who couldn't understand. I thought initially koi fracture hoga and I will be back to my studies. I wanted to become a doctor and I will be continuing my studies. So slowly I realized in the rehab of 9 months that this will be permanent disability. So it is about that emotional phase we gone through as a family. And as I said in the poem, initially I thought I will be walking again on my feet, but this was not the case. And very slowly, I would say, very slowly acceptance came. And with that acceptance, uh, life started showing you new paths, and wheels initially which were so difficult to accept, and wheels which were used to think as a barrier to achieve the goals, were not the barriers but the wings for me, as your podcast name. So my wheels are my wings now, and I'm achieving my goals. Well, this is very subjective interpretation. I would like you to know, you to interpret in your being a listener, how being an objective interpretation. Mine was, I think, very subjective.
You know, Ekta, what you just read out to us, though it may be a few lines in Hindi, probably took all of us about 45 seconds to maybe a minute to listen, but it's 18 years of life on a wheelchair after 18 years of living a life of an able-bodied person. So it's not easy for me to interpret anything, but I think, as I was listening to your poem, uh, I was reminded about a story which I read many, many years back. I don't know where, when, how, but yeah, uh, it was a storybook of kids story. There's a story in one of those books that I read. I was reminded I was listening to you. Maybe if I could respond to how I received your poem with this little story that probably I'll narrate. Is it okay with you?
Yes, yes.
So the story is about a small bird which lives on a huge, huge tree. The tree is so huge that in any direction the bird would fly, the tree would never end. The tree is so huge, and it has all kinds of fruits, it has all kinds of flowers, it has all kinds of things, and it protects the bird from uh, you know strong heat, weather, etc., etc. And the bird starts believing that this is the whole world, this is my life, and all I need to do is just fly within the tree and have a good time. But that's not what it was meant to be. It happened one day that there was a massive, massive storm, so huge, so ferocious, that it ended up uprooting the tree completely. It was gone, it was flattened, though it was so huge and so massive. And this little bird saw her entire world getting shattered. The bird was believing that this is where I will spend my entire life, but that tree is gone. And it has no choice but to then say, let me fly somewhere and see what happens. I can't be sitting here crying all along that my world has ended. I have to find a way out. And the bird starts flying. For miles and miles it flies, and there is not a single tree around. But it keeps on going. After probably a few days of flying, from a distance, it sees something green. Something so massive green that probably it was much bigger than the tree itself. And eventually she reaches that place and finds that there is a forest, which is where her journey ends. And the forest has not only a tree of the kind that she lived all her life, but there were many, many such trees in that forest. And eventually it realized that, even if this tree goes, I have another one, and I have another one, I have another one. But for her to discover this massive, massive jungle, which had many, many such massive trees, it had to go through an emotionally and psychologically shattering experience of her own initial world getting destroyed and destructed. So that's the story I remember. I'm kind of explained it a little bit more vividly, but this is a story that kind of came to me when I was listening to your poem.
Thank you. It is really a beautiful story, and I guess I have also read it somewhere. Though currently I'm not into reading at all, so of course I miss reading those stories, and especially the jungle stories are um, so inspiring sometimes that we can easily relate with the human lives as well.
Ekta, in the Hindi poem that you just read out for all of us, there was one line which I am still with at the moment. And the line is, एक थी जिंदगी नाचती दौड़ती, अचानक आकर रुक गई. So there was a life, you say, which was a life of fun, frolic, enjoying dancing on your feet, etc. And suddenly, um, due to this tragic accident, it kind of came to a halt. Can you tell us more about this Nachti Daudti Zindagi that Ekta Bhyan had, where her dreams probably was to become something else other than a para athlete?
So I want to start with my childhood. It was a very normal childhood. We had a joint family. My uncles, aunt, my chacha, bua, my siblings, my cousins, my grandparents. So we had a joint family and we used to have a lot of fun together. And mm, it was not something that I was a very outgoing person, yeah, sporty person. I was never much into sports or something like that. But बहुत खेलना कूदना था. Like at that point of time, there were no TV screen, phone screens were there, and it was a very out. Like we used to play a lot at home, and though very much focused on academics, on studies, because my grandfather shifted from village to the city Hisar, especially for educating his children. So yes, the sole focus of ours were into was studies, but it was a very fun family, I would say, playing with cousins, playing with the neighbors. It was a fun childhood, and totally unaware what the future is storing have what the destiny stores for me in the coming time. Completely clueless about it. I was having a lot of fun in my life at that point of time.
You know, in one of our earlier conversations where you and I were talking as a preparation to this recording, you spoke very fondly about your grandfather. He was uh, a different person.
Yes, he was a role model for many persons in his village, because the way his mindset was at that point of time was very rare. In He was hardly fifth or sixth pass, but even after with that little education, he had that realization that education is power, education is empowering, and that should be the focus for the coming generations. He himself couldn't get that opportunity, but he made sure that all of his children, not only his children, but his brother's children also. Like as I told you, we had a joint family. He made sure that all the 8 kids they had, he and his brother, he made sure all the 8 kids must be given that opportunity, that they must be independent. Because being from the agriculture background, it was not a profitable thing to be in village, and agriculture is not something we didn't have much land that whole family can be dependent on that. So but he realized the importance of education, and he made sure that every child of his, the 4 girls and the 4 boys, all of them get that equal opportunity to be educated. And very very different kind of person, though people are having that perception of Haryana, that there must be some kind of discrimination for a girl and a boy, but nothing was like that. Even 60 years ago, in his mindset, he was equally supportive for his girl child and a boy child.
And I'm sure this must have shaped a lot of your own father's
Yes,
thinking, his personality, right?
right.
Maybe you could help us understand a little bit about your father too.
Yes, my father is the eldest among the all siblings.
Eldest
So
of the eight?
yes, eldest of the 8.
Okay.
So he was carrying the responsibility of educating his younger siblings in the same way that his father and his uncle used to carry. And then he completed his post graduation and the PhD from Haryana Agriculture University. So he made sure that he will equally supporting his younger siblings. Before his own children, when we were not born, he was like, I will make sure that my cousins, my siblings will get that opportunity. And in the same way, when we were born, so he made sure even after my accident that my education should not stop, should not be stopped at any cost. Though initially I was not at all confident, I would say. Even I was surprised when they used to say me that you will be resuming your studies soon. Because how you can think that in such a severe disability I will be studying? So he has been very supportive, the guiding light for me.
No, I know what kind of deeply touched me when you were telling not only so fondly about your grandfather, but about your father too, what he means to you, and not just your father, even your mother, what she means to you. Though
Yes.
you told me she's a homemaker all her life, uh, about the incident where you had to be taken to an examination hall after your accident, where you were paralyzed with all four limbs, and the struggle that your parents went through to see to it that you are able to attend the examination hall. I mean, maybe for the benefit of our listeners, you could probably narrate that story, because it is, I think I was deeply moved with that.
So my parents has been my pillars of strength. At that point of time when I met with this accident, I was clueless about my disability, but they were aware. Doctors told me what the real position is. I spent 9 months in the hospital for rehab. Slowly, I realized that I won't be able to walk again. But this was not the case for my parents. Of course, they were told before than me. And it was much more harder, much harder for them to accept this, because being parents and suddenly you are told that your child won't be able to walk again. So this was difficult. And the incident you are sharing about the examination hall, वहां तक पहुंचने में बहुत समय लगा हमें, reaching that examination center. Firstly, when after the rehab we came home, of course the disability was the biggest challenge. Everything changed after that. I was learning about the new life, just like a newborn child. How to be, my parents used to make me sit for 5 minutes, then 10 minutes. Gradually that practice we developed for longer durations. Then how to hold a spoon, they taught me how to hold a spoon. Initially for many months I couldn't hold a spoon even. So everything I had to learn from the scratch, and they taught me everything. And of course disability was a challenge, but apart from that there was a big social angle as well, because when people used to come to meet me to ask for my well-being, they used to say any damn thing to my parents that she will be a burden on a family, and there's no point of getting her educated, and there is no chances of her getting a job. So going through that thing, they didn't let that negativity come to me. They absorbed that negativity of all that negative stereotypes towards a disabled person. They absorbed them themselves and just made me focus on my education and on the positive things. So this was I think the biggest support one can give someone who is going through a tough phase, not letting them go through that negativity what a society holds for that person. And apart from that, yes, I was not in a mental state where I felt confident that I can resume my studies. But they inculcated that confidence in me. Even I said, Ki, how you guys can imagine that I can study again? They said, okay, just enroll yourself, start going to college. If you don't feel like going, don't go. उन्होंने यही कहा कि let's take a first step. Then it's up to you. because they knew I will enjoy my studies, because that was the only thing that was closest to my heart, and I was among the academically good. I was good at academics. And then of course, I couldn't pursue the medical stream. I enrolled myself in a college of Hisar only, in English honors and psychology. So psychology was a subject which I find very interesting. And in the very first year, I topped my college in psychology subject. So at that point of time, um, एक साल का break था, and that 1 year of first year. So after 2 years, I could hear something good about me. Before that, in those 2 years, I was continuously hearing, oh, this happened to her, what she will do, she will be a burden, there is no point of getting education, क्यों college लेकर जाना है, it's a big deal for you guys, let her stay at home. Yes, sir. So, but when I topped the college, then I realized, yes, there is something that I still can do. And after that, there was no looking back, and I started focusing what I can do instead of cribbing and complaining what was lost in that accident. And that mindset gave me that strength to move ahead. And yes, I had interest in my academics, and after that first year, one of my college professors, who was very strict, and I replied one of his questions in the class, and he rarely praised any student in his class, but at that moment he said that this girl is going to make wonders. मैंने कहा इस प्रोफेसर से हम ये बात सुनने को मिल रही है. He rarely praises any student of his class, and he said that this girl is going to make wonders. मैंने कहा people have such expectation from me. I was thought that she's a hopeless case. People used to think, even when I talked in my very psychology subject, तब भी दो तरह के लोग थे. कुछ ने कहा कि like, what if she topped? What she scored well? What if? There is no point of getting good marks. There is no point of topping the college. There is nothing going to happen. So somewhere people had that hopelessness in me, and somewhere it was a blessing in disguise. I had no pressure of expectations. I was a free bird, and there was no expectation at all. It was a blessing in disguise.
And then the Haryana Civil Services exam happened to you. You happened to kind of crack that and get into a job in the Haryana state government in the Department of Education. That also uh, must be a very proud moment for you, isn't it?
Definitely. It was a moment that I strived for around 7 years. I prepared for competitive exams. After my graduation, I started preparing for competitive exams. And I couldn't qualify that exam in the first attempt. And even when I applied it for the second time, meanwhile, I got a job of an auditor in Haryana government only. So I got that job, and still I was preparing for this competitive exam of Haryana Civil Services. So people used to say, why are you bothering so much yourself and your family? Why don't you just settle down with this job you have already got? It is a good job, and you must be happy with it. मतलब इतना हवा में उड़ने की क्या जरूरत है? You must be satisfied. ये आपको मिल गया, it is something big for you. हम तो ये भी नहीं सोच रहे थे आपको ये मिलेगा. But yes, your efforts, you worked hard, you got this job, and now you must be satisfied. But my parents knew my caliber. My parents supported me, and they said, don't bother. And even I'm very fortunate that in that office also where I got my first job, they were also that, Ekta, you should continue your studies. You should prepare for this exam the way you were preparing for before this job. And it was in 2011. So slowly, from 2003, I met with that accident, and 2011. Tab tak to I was an expert of ignoring all the negativity. So I was very sure that I will be, of course, I will be appearing in this exam no matter what the result is. I was not very sure, yes, because I couldn't go for coaching that people used to go to Delhi. I just put the notes, and I was doing the home studies only, self-study only. So People used to say लोग तो इतना इतना time spend करके आते हैं दिल्ली जाकर अपना civil services की तैयारी करते हैं. You are at home and doing. So what? They are studying the same books. I am studying the same books. They are studying the same notes. I am studying the same notes. My family arranged all those notes from Delhi, from those institutes which will be helpful for me, and I cracked that exam.
Beautiful.
That was a shocking thing, not for me and my family, but for the society. And then there was continuously my parents were congratulated. My parents, people used to call them, and people used to come to specially to congratulate them in person. And that exam, getting that job, completely shifted that perception of me and my disability in the society, where people used to think that her intelligence won't be enough to get her a job of high repute, or there is no point of her studies, there is no point of her stepping out of the home. Why? I am a quadriplegic person, I need help of two persons while traveling, while shifting from car to wheelchair, wheelchair to bed. And every time I need two persons. So my parents were with me in the college as well. So they used to see, and why you are bothering your parents, you can stay at home. But my parents make sure that I will be a regular student. They made sure that I will be getting that kind of notes, books, where she can be at that level for the exam she is competing for. So that exam completely shifted that perception of me and my disability in the society. For me, I won't say that I was very confident. No, I was not confident at all initially. I won't say that I had very long-term plans. No, I had no long-term plans. I was just looking that my first year is done, second year is done, third year is done. Then I started applying for teaching jobs, then for banking jobs and other clerical jobs. I applied for many jobs, and it was not that I was always focused on civil services. No. I knew my reality that in this competitive world where lakhs of students are preparing for the civil services, it is something that I was very sure that I have to be financially independent.
Correct.
This was the thing in my mind. I used to give tuitions when I was studying to the school children, so that I wanted to be financially independent. Of course, it was not a thing that a big deal. No, it was, but I wanted to contribute, or I wanted to be financially independent. So this was in my mind that I have to be financially independent, no matter what kind of class 1, class 2, class 3 job it is. And it was a gradual process. As I said, in 2011, I got a job of auditor. Then I qualified for English teacher. Then I qualified for a bank PO. And then later, this Haryana Civil Services happened. So the thing you asked, that I was not very confident about myself. I was not a long-term planner. I was not very optimistic about my career. It just one day at a time, one step at a time. It was just that way. Yes, I lost my confidence after that accident, that plannings are not always the way we plan it, happens in the same way. So it was a day, it was a one day at a time, yeah, 1 year at a time. It happened that way. Or मैं आपका एक point और miss कर गई, like initially when we were discussing about the accessibility.
Yes.
So when I was preparing for this competitive exam, when I was in my college made every arrangement on the ground floor for my convenience. I don't know how the administration of a small city is so aware and so sensitive towards the need of a disabled student. But this is not the case in Delhi, where I was appearing for a competitive exam. So many times when I had my centers at Delhi or in Chandigarh, these are the two major cities nearby my town. So few of my centers were at the first floor. My sitting arrangement was at the first floor. And even I was not aware that at that point of time that it was my right to be to have that sitting arrangement on the ground floor. And the organizers bluntly said, no, we cannot change it. And there was no ramp or lift. So my parents literally, they carried my wheelchair up to the first floor. So there were many instances, and not one. There were many instances. A few of them said, no, the parents cannot accompany after the gate. भाई व्हीलचेयर कौन चलाएगा? कौन कौन जाके पूछेगा कि वेयर इज माय सीटिंग अरेंजमेंट, एंड व्हाट इफ it is on the ground, not on the ground floor. So people were very rigid also. They don't understand the rights and the needs of the disabled students. And I won't say that picture has changed completely. Yes, it got better, but still many of my peers having the disability faces same challenges even today.
You know, in your introduction, I read a line which I will read again. It goes, beyond sports, Ekta actively advocates for rights of persons with disabilities. Can you say more about this? The rights of persons with disabilities. Uh, as a person who has lived through the disability state uh, much of the last 20 years.
Uh, I want to know, sir, from you, what the first impression, first thought comes to your mind when you see a person with disability at a public place?
You know, I don't want to sound artificially nice here.
No, no, be original, sir. Yes,
So
that will take us closer
my
to the.
my immediate reaction when I see a person with disability anywhere is I feel sorry for that person. Not sad for that person. I feel sorry for that person. That's my immediate
Or
reaction. And it doesn't ever come to my mind that how this person can move from point A to B, which I can do it effortlessly. It doesn't even
yes.
come to my mind.
So, uh, majority of the population in our country see the persons with disability with pity or burden.
Yes.
But have we ever tried why this social image of this community?
Mm.
Okay, they are not employed. But what are the reasons behind it? What is the education rate of persons with disabilities? That is less than 60%. And what is the education rate for the women with disabilities? That is still less than 50%. And that 50% is also constitutes 45% only 10th pass.
10th grade.
Or 10th grade, yes, only 10th pass, 45%. Hardly 2 to 3% of them can reach to the higher education. What is the factors responsible for it? The accessibility. How a person with disability reach to a school? Firstly, they are refused admissions in the schools. In the private schools, the renowned schools of your town will refuse admission to a child with disability. A family came to me for the guidance of a sport. They are having a girl with disability, and initially they asked for the guidance of the sports, but they later told me that no school is giving admission to her. Then somehow we managed to get her admission in a school, and then later she won a medal. She was admitted in a very renowned school at a later stage after winning a medal. That's a different story. But still, majority of the population who are having disability, especially the children with disability, are refused admissions in the school. Even if they are allowed to admit it, there are no transportation facilities which are accessible to them. I have never been I have never used the public transport in my country after my accident. But in abroad, I'm using it. Yes, the metros in our country are accessible. But how to reach to that metro until and unless I don't have my private vehicle? I have friends who are in Delhi. They cannot use the bus. First, they have to book a taxi or a cab. And many times, my personal experience, the taxi, Ola, Uber cancel our rides, saying that we won't allow a wheelchair user in our car. That will make our car dirty, or it will tear the leather, the covers. We are bluntly said no on our face, no. We can't we can't book your ride. They cancel the rides. One of my friends was told, she's a wheelchair user, you should not book a taxi, you should book an ambulance for you. So this is the mindset. People are considered burden because they are not provided with the equal opportunity, equal accessibility. जब आप उनको educate नहीं कर पा रहे हो, even somehow they with the family support they get educated, Then the matter comes of employment. My friends who are even MBA, who are into wheelchair, who are wheelchair users, they prefer not to mention the person with disability in their CV at the very first stage, because they had experience. When they mention this thing in the CV at the very first stage, they won't even call for interview. They disclose it at the second stage. And 90% times they are discriminated, that they are not called for that opportunity. First, getting education is a big challenge for us, sir. And then getting employment, even after getting education. People say they have quota. Of course, we have quota. But how to avail that quota? The seats are lying vacant when you don't make provisions for them to get educated. When you are not educated, what is the point of that quota? First, you have to work at the grassroots level. Students are refused, and it is in the Disability Act that right to education, no school can refuse. But it happens. Parents कहाँ तक fight करें, कहाँ court case file करें कि their children are refused admissions in the schools. And this is the picture in this 21st century, in the metro cities, in the small cities.
But this
disability is something, yes, if someone is having by birth or by birth, then it doesn't matter. But majority of the disabled communities from the lower economic background. Like if I talk about spinal cord injury, the main reason of spinal cord injury is fall from height. And that is mostly the labor class. So lower economic background se hone ki wajah se many of them are not in a position to get the right kind of treatment. बहुत पोलियो की वजह से और किसी इन्फेक्शन की वजह से their legs have to be amputated, their arms have to be amputated due to lack of medical facilities or due to the chances of injury from falling from the height. So I want to convey that disability is mainly from the lower economic background. So if we need to focus on their first, educating them and giving them employment. And transportation is of course, I want to reach to a building, to an office. Accessibility matters there. But how to reach there? Until and unless you don't have your personal vehicle, you can't reach there. Even if you are having severe disability. Yes, someone is having 40% disability or 50% disability, they can almost normally they can continue their education. But what about the severe impairment? One who is 100% visually impaired, one who is 100% hearing impaired, one who is 100% orthopedic disabled. So we need to make provisions for them as well. उसमें भी ऐसा नहीं है कि disability में जो severe impairment है, we need to focus on them as well. And around 60% of the population who are having disability spend their lives confined to the four walls.
You know, Ekta, what I gather from what we have just spoken up until now is a large part of who you are is as a civil servant in the Haryana state government, working for the Department of Education and promoting this cause. Another part of who you are is, of course, an advocacy person to advocate the rights of disabled person. But a significant portion of who you are and the world that you belong to or you're a part of is the world of para games. And I know you are a world-renowned para athlete in a very, very specific sport, and having won so many medals internationally and nationally and have made the nation so proud. Maybe if you can pick one or two standout moments for you in Ekta Bhyan as a para athlete representing India on the world stage.
I want to correct a little bit, sir, that I'm working with Department of Employment.
Sorry.
Not education.
Sorry, Department of Employment.
I'm working with Department of Employment in Haryana government. And the moments which are very close to my heart in my sports journey are firstly winning that gold medal in Asian Para Games in 2018. Can I share three?
Please, go ahead.
Personal
please.
one is that when I won international medal of Asian Games,
Yes.
that is the first moment.
Yes.
Second moment is that when I could motivate people like me to start the sports career or even education. Like in the last question, we had a conversation regarding my exam qualification. When I
Yes.
qualified that exam, many people like me who are in wheelchair and they stopped their education after their injury, they met me, they connected me, and they said that, ma'am, after hearing your story, we resumed our studies. And now many of them are financially independent. So motivating people like me or girls like me is something very important for me. So many girls contact me through social media that, ma'am, Didi, we want to start this game. How we want to start game? Which game we should we start from? Where should we start? So this is the second most important. Second most तो नहीं कहूँगी, very important after winning that medal, that I could motivate people like me to resume their careers in sports or in education. Third one was when my story was shared in Man Ki Baat by Honorable Prime Minister Sir. It was a big surprise for me. I was not aware that my story is going to be shared, and suddenly my phone starts ringing continuously, one call after the other. What's happening? Then I picked a call from my chacha. He said, Ekta, your story is on live of Man Ki Baat. मैंने कहा है? बोले हाँ. He was shivering. He was fixing his AC or cooler. He said ki my hands are shivering. Ekta, your story is shared by Honorable Prime Minister Sir just a moment ago. And he was so emotional. So then I realized that my story is shared. Then many people sent me the recordings and the video clips and the audio clips. So this was also a big surprise for me. And after that, many people started recognizing the efforts of para sports and para athletes.
Apart from the 2018 Asian Games, you went on to represent India in the 2020 Paralympics in Tokyo, and you had some great achievements there. You went on to represent India in the games in Hangzhou as well, and you have some great achievements there too. What is next? I know you have just come back from a huge camp in Bangalore, where you were there for almost a month. So what's in store for Ekta Bhyan in the world of para games in the next couple of years or in the foreseeable future? What are your dreams, aspirations?
As you said, I participated in Tokyo Paralympics.
Yes.
And it was not a good performance on my part. And I couldn't win a medal, and even I couldn't perform my personal best, my usual best. So that was the event was very I didn't perform well in that event, and it was very disappointing. It was very heartbreaking for me that I couldn't perform my best in that event, and that too the Paralympics, where I was preparing for 4 years, and I couldn't perform my basic perform. I couldn't give my basic performance. And it was very disappointing. But then I realized I'm sharing this because it is not all the bed of roses or all the success and the failures.
Correct.
All the success, there are many failures in the way also. While qualifying those exams, I failed. I was failed in many exams. It took me 7 years, as I told, and in those 7 years, I appeared for n number of exams, and I couldn't qualify majority of them. Then after 7 years, I started. I thought that I'm thinking that after 7 years, I was prepared to give my best. It took me 7 years, and I want to talk about the failures as well. It is not only about the success story.
Sure.
So many failures were there, and then in the sports event, I was almost in every competition I was performing best. And imagine at the Paralympics you performed worst. So it is the uncertainty that I usually relate with the life as well. It is not always that you can be very certain about your performance or plans. So, but how I came out of that performance was that because I was very satisfied with my hard work I did in the past 4 years. That was the best I could do. Of course, result is not in your hand, and I accepted that. And then I came back from that bad performance to my best performance. I set a new Asian record in Asian Para Games 2023. I won a gold at World Championship. I won a silver and a bronze again in 2025 and 24 in World Championships. Now the only medal missing in my kitty is the Paralympic medal. So that will be in LA 2028. And I'm preparing for that. And I'm hopeful that I will be having one Paralympic medal, hopefully gold.
Of course, inshallah, as they say. You know, Ekta, this has been such a beautiful, beautiful conversation. I'm glad we could spend a lot of time in exploring and understanding Ekta Bhyan in terms of how she happened to be where she is today. And it's such a rich and a motivating and an inspiring story. Ekta, we started this conversation with a beautiful, beautiful Hindi poem of yours. Maybe if we could end this conversation also with maybe another poem of yours, that would be a icing on the cake.
Sure, sir. I love writing, but it makes me sometimes why I'm not writing. It is so calming for me to write, but many times since a year or so, I'm very occupied with my training, and I wish I could write more. The poem I'm sharing with you now is very old one. I have written it on moon. I'm a nature lover. I love spending time outdoors, sitting in the garden, staring at the stars and the moons and the flowers, the butterflies. So moon is something I can watch for hours. So once I wrote this poem, seeing a moon, watching the moon only. So it goes like this. Gradually moon appears behind the trees, serene in nature, sparkling in color. I find it so beautiful in every shape and color, even when it is behind the clouds and is very blur. It keeps illuminating, covered in clouds darkness, emerges even shinier as if flawless and dauntless. It is always dazzling, with or without stars. A black patch inside, proudly showing its scar. Storms, clouds, thunder, or rains, with calmness it is enduring. The constant brightness is always alluring.
So beautiful, Ekta, so beautiful. I mean, just as you and your constant brightness is illuminating so many people around you. You are not only doing the nation proud in the world of para games, and I'm sure you will win a gold medal in the Los Angeles Paralympics in 2028. But there are so many lights that you are lighting with helping people to live life of hope, helping people to live a life of hope and life of dignity. I think that's the greatest gift you are leaving this world with is the light of hope and the light of dignity. Thank you so much, Ekta. Just want to hear from you. Where has this conversation left you?
Still, so many things are running in mind that I wanted to share and I missed in the conversation. There is so much to share about my community that why we are still not considered the part of the mainstream.
Sure.
Maybe next time we can have such conversation, not revolving around my story,
Sure.
but revolving around the people like me, where I can be the voice of them.
You already are, Ekta. I mean, though much of the conversation in the last hour or so has been around you, but I think we all are a representative of something much larger than who we are. So I think the voice of the collective that you represent obviously did come over here. So thank you so much from the bottom of my heart to come on the Wings podcast. It's been such a joy and an honor talking to you. You take good care of yourself. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for your time today, my dear listeners. This is your host, Milind Agnihotri, signing off. Goodbye, take care, and stay safe. This podcast is for general information purposes only and should not be considered as a piece of any professional advice. Views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of its guest. Creators of this podcast expressly disclaim any and all liability or responsibility for any direct or indirect, consequential or other damages arising out of any individual's use of this podcast. For feedback and suggestions, please write to wingsindia75@gmail.com. Thank you.